how to be profitable in 2024.
Marketing has really changed.
That there is a path to a career within our practices.
Change your website geared more towards them.
The multi-generational communication conflicts.
People aren't coming to you because you're an in-network provider. They're coming to you because they want a beautiful smile.
This is truly what's on the mind of orthodontists.
You know, having that high level of service.
This day and age, it's all about differentiating yourself.
So happy to be here.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for joining us. How are you this morning?
Doing great. How are you, Devin?
Oh, great. Hey, we've been asking everybody the same 4 questions, and I am really excited to kind of hear what your take is. I think it's going to be really fresh and a really cool perspective. So first question that we're asking people is, what is on the mind of every orthodontist that they don't really have a solution for?
Yeah, I really feel like a lot of orthodontists, whenever they come to me, I've seen several practices all over the country that have this problem. And usually they don't really have the time or the energy to do a lot of their marketing or know what they're doing, spending money in different areas that don't need to be spent. And sometimes they'll even just pass the torch onto like their clinic assistant or someone in the office or a team member that is kind of familiar with social media and technology, but they don't really know what they're doing. And so they're kind of trying out there and trying to figure out, what am I doing, and kind of just winging it. That's kind of what I'm seeing in the industry right now that's going on.
Yeah. So kind of this idea of like, hey, who's the youngest person in our office? They're going to do the social media. Like, that's the strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. And some of them, they don't know if TikTok's a good option. They don't know if doing Facebook's a good option. A lot of them don't really know. And I feel like it's going to be really beneficial to kind of hear some of my points and my perspectives of what I've seen and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I think so the way that you're kind of setting this up is that they know they need to do marketing, but they really don't know the next step or even how to fully integrate it a lot of times.
Exactly. And what I see a lot of docs looking for is just an all-in-one person. These days they can see, especially with COVID that happened, they can see that a lot of these jobs can be outsourced, working from home. And that's kind of where my niche is right now, offering that personal connection, being able to text and talk to the doctor as if I was in their practice with them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I can't wait to hear where this goes. So in light of that being the problem that you're identifying here, how can practices really lean into these obstacles to find a solution? And I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Obstacle is the Way. That's a way that I personally really think is very beneficial to attacking problems is, well, let's just face it head on and just plow right through it. So what would you say the practices, how can they lean in to find a solution?
So some different things that I might recommend is just kind of having someone evaluate their overall presence, their website, their Google, how their SEO is doing, and looking at their social media, how frequently are they posting, if it's branded, because a lot of it boils down to is how the patients or how the moms view the website, how they view the social media. And that's a lot of the deciding factors. And so if they're not up to date on certain things or they're not doing enough things, that could kind of be a deterrent to go with the next office that is doing things.
I think that's a really great point. One, I'm sure that I live in a little bit of a bubble. I'll just, where the thing of like evaluating your SEO and your social media elements and stuff, I mean, to me, that's like a no-brainer, right? And I think that we work with a lot of practices that also are really proficient in that. But I know that that's not everybody. So what's your feeling in terms of kind of how much of the market really isn't doing these things? Do you have a feel for that?
A lot of the clients that I pick up a lot of it comes down to their website. A lot of them think, 10 years ago when they have their website, they're like, okay, this is going to be forever. This is going to be my website here. And I'm not going to be able to change anything. It's going to work great. And that's not how things go. You got to constantly be innovating and you got to be doing the latest thing on the websites. You got to be using different things. A lot of times, video is a great way to add on to a website. It really depends on especially like what kind of audience you start seeing a lot frequently in the office. If you're seeing a lot more moms or a lot more women, maybe it's time to change your website geared more towards them.
I think that's a great point that, I built a website and, I started that Facebook account and, we have an Instagram account, but really now we need to take the next step and really dig down. How are we using it? Are we keeping it up to date? I think that's a great point because I do think I run into a lot of, and I'm just sharing my own experience here because I think, I run into a lot of practices. And as you mentioned that, I do think through like, yeah, there's a lot of them that they know what they need to do sometimes, but then they're like, well, I have a website.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just not good enough.
Exactly. Yes. And that could be, you can take that principle and apply it to their social media or their Google presence. It's not just their website. Because for example, Google reviews, it's kind of, the pulse of their reputation and getting more patients that way. A lot of it comes down to like, are they doing enough Google reviews? Are they sending out enough links or just sending an email as simple as that to their patients that they know that are very happy with their braces that they got or their Invisalign that they got. So, just different ways if they're able to do more. I think the key thing is knowing what area to do more in.
Great. So if you're talking about like learning where, and so kind of your suggestion is to kind of get an audit. How often should these practices be kind of having this audit of their social media and of their digital presence?
Yeah, I would say maybe every year is a good starting point. Maybe it's been several years since you've really looked at your website, really looked at your presence. And honestly, like just getting feedback from patients of like, hey, like, how'd you find us? What do you think of our website? What do you think of this? And just getting their honest opinion so you can apply the things that the market's wanting and implementing into your current website or current Google presence. Are you posting enough photos in your Google presence? I think it just comes down to that. And I think a good thing is maybe every quarter kind of like hearing feedback from patients and, whether they do have a social media person or a person that, even a marketing company that they're using, if they're taking that feedback and sending it off to them, that can be a fantastic way to keep things fresh, like you were mentioning.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for kind of getting us started on that. Now, I know, there might be a lot of people in the industry that don't really know who you are. I've known you for 3 or 4 years now, and I know that you have operated in other industries, you do marketing, and you're really, really excellent at what you do. We've done some work with you. We would love to, if you could just tell everybody kind of a little bit about who you are, introduce yourself, and then if somebody wanted to find you, where would they go to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Davin mentioned, my name's Tyler. I do run Multi-Peak Marketing, and we specialize specifically in orthodontic marketing. We also do some dental marketing as well. And that's our niche. We love working with doctors. After doing a bunch of different industries from the beginning when we got started, ortho and dental is just like the highest return on investment we've seen for our clients. And that's the shift that we decided to go in. We got to meet awesome individuals like Davin and a bunch of other awesome people in the industry. And, it makes it awesome to get to collaborate with those individuals. It's a really awesome industry. And so that's kind of the start of how it all kind of began. And, we also do different orthodontic companies, marketings like Davin's. Yeah, so that's kind of what we do. But at the end of the day, basically what we do is we do things personally. So we do websites, we do Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads, posting, website redesigns, SEO, like we do everything. Basically, we're like the all-in-one person you want to go to. And that's kind of how we market ourselves, is just having a personal marketing person on your team.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Well, so if someone wanted to know more about Multi-Peak Marketing, do they find you online, socials? Where do they find you?
Yeah, if you just want to type in Multi-Peak Marketing, we'll pop up on Google, on social media. If you want to type in multipeakmarketing.com, that's a fantastic way to learn more about what we do. We also got different packages on our website, so you can kind of see if you are looking to get like an audit or whatever, I offer free consultations to take a look at your stuff completely for free. So you kind of have an idea of where to go from there.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, when we post it, I'm sure we'll post a link below. Go click below, right?
For sure.
Well, we've got a couple more questions with you, Tyler, and we want to kind of move. You've set up some really great things for us to think about, I think, at the practice level. I'd love to move to the industry level, or at least to kind of put some thought behind where does a practice fit within the industry? And so where are practices and the overall industry vulnerable, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it just comes down to their overall appearance and their reputation. Like I mentioned, a lot of the offices that come to us are more old school, and they know they need to be more new school and implement different ideas like that. So a lot of it, like I mentioned, it comes down to a lot of different things, just their online presence in summary for that. But, that includes their website, their Google presence, their social media. And a bonus thing too, I think, is, if you have team members that are, having fun in the office, why don't you record that? Why don't you try different new trends in the office, recording TikTok videos and things like that? Because, like, for example, when moms see that, they're like, oh, like, they're really cool. I want to get my kid in this office.
Well, I know at WildSmiles, when we have our social media content calls with our clients, and of course, we're talking specifically about some WildSmiles stuff, but, we encourage that, everything is content. Everything in your practice is an opportunity for content, whether it's education. I mean, if there's questions that people are asking, well, sit down and make a video. Or what are your biggest concerns that you get? Well, sit down and make a video, and you can make it fun, make it entertaining. But really, when you look at the lens of everything as content, the world is really wide open in terms of the things that you can do.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
To kind of just round up the vulnerability piece, sounds like what you're saying that you see the most in terms of vulnerability are these practices that, like we talked about earlier, they have a website, but they haven't touched it in 10 years, or they have a social media account, but they don't really do anything with it. And so that can be really vulnerable because they're potentially losing patients, losing traffic to their website, whatever, just because they're not keeping up.
Exactly. And I think a couple things too that can be, that are vulnerable is a lot of them don't have something called the Facebook pixel, which can target a bunch of people that are coming, whether they're coming from Google or social media, that are going to the website, because they can track how many people are going to the website. Another thing is the Google Analytics, because from there you can really get a bird's eye view of, okay, how many people are coming to my website? How many are organic? How many are coming from social media? How many are coming directly, whether you're doing like postcards or, direct advertising? Those are definitely some vulnerable things.
I love that idea. And I think a lot of doctors, just people in general, they look at those things and think, oh, that's really expensive. But really, you can get all of this stuff on a website now that's not extremely expensive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not like, I guess where I'm meaning on this before, and I know you'll have a great answer to this, but what I'm trying to articulate is I think people hear these new things, Facebook, Pixel, all this stuff, and they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend tens and tens and tens of thousands on a new website and all this stuff, when really the solution isn't necessarily that big.
No, and there's different options that we can do. For example, websites, right? Like, we can create quick custom landing pages that we can specifically track in our advertising efforts that are going to that specific landing page. So, like, we can do different things like that. But like when we mentioned like the Google Analytics and the Facebook Pixel, those things are completely for free to install on your website. It's just you can track things and see things a lot better. And for example, with the Facebook Pixel, you can spend a couple dollars a day and be able to retarget all those visitors that didn't click on book a call or book an appointment or whatever that might be. And so there's different little efforts that can help patients from seeping through the cracks. You have a way to get them back. And that's a great way for them to come back. And, they go from the website and then they get on Instagram or Facebook, they see an ad about you. They're like, oh, well, they're up to date. I'm them everywhere. They must be a good option to go with.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think you're spot on in terms of the marketing vulnerabilities there. So where are practices, and where would you say the overall industry is really well positioned for success?
I think the best thing that I've seen is they started, originally when they started their practice or they took over someone else's office, a lot of what they automatically have is their Google reviews. I think that's a fantastic option because Google can see, because it's very easy, you don't have to touch your website. You don't have to touch a lot of things because people can just, whether you're looking at a restaurant you want to go with, you want to see everyone's reviews Did they love the food? Do they have a good reputation? Are they 5 stars or are they 4.5 stars and up? That's what they're looking for. When someone sees that an office has hundreds of good reviews, they're going to think highly of that office. And so I forgot what the stats are, but I think it's like people are 80% more likely when they look at testimonials or a friend referred you or something like that, they're 80% more likely to go with you instead of someone else. And I think, they see Google as a good reputation source of who to go with.
That's great. I love that. I always like ending on a positive note.
Yes.
Well, so Tyler, we're gearing this, like I said at the beginning, we're gearing this towards kind of busy people in the industry. I mean, we're all busy. So we want to keep these fairly short and to the point. I also want to give people a way that they can take away some just quick nugget of like, what are the 2 to 3 takeaways from what you're sharing today? So if you wouldn't mind just kind of wrapping us up with 1 to 3 just quick points that people could maybe implement like Monday if they're listening to this,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think obviously when you guys have team meetings, I would recommend really trying to pay attention more, during your week of how they're hearing about you, because that's a great indicator of, okay, what's working and what's not. A great way is like when you get feedback, whether it's your Google or your website or whatever that might be, you can instantly take that information and apply it. So I think that's a great step, number 1. 2, if you're able just to, whether it's every quarter or every year, just kind of look over your website and your social media. Here's a good option. Maybe even going to see your competitors that are up to date and trendy, see what they're doing and see, okay, obviously you don't want to copy them, but they're obviously doing different things that we're not. So how can we innovate a little bit more to gear ourselves towards going into that direction? That's a good step for a good step number 2. Step number 3, I would say maybe, if you know what's working, whether that is Google ads, whether that's doing more social media posts or videos, I'd say if you know that's working and you're hearing feedback from a lot of that stuff, go all in with that stuff because you know it's working. Go all in with that. And that's my step number 3 that I would choose.
That's great. I think people are a little afraid sometimes to go all in, but like we have to go all in and see what's working. And then we can always dial back or change course. But if you're not all in, you don't really see the results. I think that's a great point. I really appreciate you, Tyler, spending your time and your expertise with us today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast, Davin.
Oh, of course, you're welcome. Well, so before we go though, we do have one question that I've kind of been asking everybody. And to set that up is and nobody's known what it is. I think you'll really enjoy this one. I'm a big believer in the story that we're telling and not just telling, but that we're entering into our patients' stories and our customer stories and really trying to empathize with where they're at. And that really helps us to know where to respond, where to really provide value, right? There's 2 characters in every story that really make it a great story, and that's a great villain and a great hero. What would you say, or who would you say is your favorite villain and your favorite hero?
Oh man, I really like, if you've ever watched Megamind, I don't know, that's the first thing that came to my head. I just love the whole story with that. I know you got girls, you probably watched it, but I really love the whole idea of the villain then becomes the hero.
Okay, so I am not familiar with Megamind.
Okay.
What is it?
Basically, I haven't watched it in the longest time, but I've been wanting to watch it a lot more recently. But basically like a villain, and there's basically like a guy that's like Superman, and Superman basically he retires, and then all of a sudden there's a different person that comes onto the stage, and that person basically has the Superman powers, and so the villain then becomes the hero in a way. So he's kind of turned from his old ways and he's become the hero. And so it's kind of like a story that's not necessarily like, you can kind of tell like who the superhero is and who the villain is, like Batman and Joker, right? Like you can tell who is who, and that's just kind of how the story goes. But I like the different perspective of seeing something different. So seeing someone that was in everyone's eyes a villain, seeing them as a hero then.
I love that. I think in the heart of every person in the world is the capacity to really love a redemptive story.
Yeah.
So I love that idea
Yeah.
of the villain turns from their
Yeah.
ways and becomes the hero to replace where the hero was lost.
Yeah.
That's great. And I'll have to go watch it. I appreciate the insight. All right, Tyler. Well, thank you. This has been a blast. I've loved every minute of it. You've added a lot of value, I think, to the listeners and their practices. And you've given them some things that I think they can take away and implement right away.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah. Well, we
Fantastic.
appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Davin.